There was a lot of mystery about the identity of Bill Skarsgård's character, the Kid, in the television series Castle Rock. Lots of spoilers for that show and some other Stephen King things. This is Henry Deaver. In 1991, he went missing and returned 11 days later. Upon Henry's return, this guy showed up out of nowhere. Warden Lacey of Shawshank Prison finds him and thinks he is the devil and he needs to be locked up. 27 years later, the warden kills himself. The new warden finds this kid in a secret wing of the prison who asks for Henry Deaver, now a lawyer. The kid tells Henry's childhood friend Molly he's from an alternate reality. Henry was adopted, and before he was adopted, the Deavers tried having a baby that died. The kid claims he is that baby from another reality. He didn't die. They never adopted the boy who was named Henry in the reality where the rest of the series takes place. But when our Henry went missing in 1991, he somehow crossed over into this reality where the kid, Henry 2.0 we'll call him, was from. He crossed over and was held prisoner by the Matthew Deaver of that reality for a long time. Then both Henrys cross over into Henry 1.0's reality, where the kid met Warden Lacey. Henry 2.0 simply wants to go back to his own reality, and he believes our Henry can help him, as Matthew Deaver of both realities was obsessed with a noise he called the voice of God. Matthew Deaver could hear it, and our Henry can hear it as well. Henry 2.0 thinks it's the key to opening up the gateway back to his reality. The big thing that disproves the kid's story happens in Season 2, when we get a flashback to 1619, where we see the kid. Unless there's some weird time travel that was planned for a third season, this disproves everything the kid said about being the son of Ruth and Matthew Deaver from another reality. So who is he? Bill Skarsgård suggested he has a connection to another Stephen King character. I once jokingly suggested the kid was Pennywise, the evil alien clown spider from the novel It, also played by Skarsgård in the 2017 and 2019 film adaptations. Pennywise has a psychic connection with the town of Derry, at times influencing the behavior of some of the population, which we see a little bit of with the kid. But Pennywise eats his victims, and we never see that in Castle Rock. Also, the kid is in prison and is discovered 27 years later. Pennywise goes into hibernation and returns to wreak havoc on Derry every 27 years. While that is a very specific number, I don't think it's enough to connect the kid to Pennywise, at least by itself. Pennywise seems like he's in a higher weight class than the kid. Pennywise transforms into his victim's greatest fears, while the closest we see the kid utilize any transformation abilities is in the Season 1 finale. Ruth Deaver stabs the kid at one point, and it takes a lot more than that to hurt Pennywise. You also have Henry threaten the kid with a gun. Again, something Pennywise would laugh at. Yes, based on the kid's wicked smile at the end of Season 1, it's likely him being put in the cage was part of his plan, so maybe the gun wouldn't have hurt him. But again, he was stabbed, and he seemed a little miffed about his time he spent in a cage when talking with Alan Pangborn. So I don't know, maybe he can be hurt by mere mortal means, or maybe he's faking it. You might say he's not Pennywise, but maybe he's part of the same species. Maybe. He is in Castle Rock a good 100 years before Pennywise's earliest recorded appearance in Derry, but again, the power levels of these two don't match at all. If the kid has been on Earth as long as Pennywise, or longer, why is he so much weaker? I'm going to say this connection is unlikely. Next, we have Andre Lanoge, the antagonist from the TV miniseries Storm of the Century. We don't know much about him, and what we do know comes from him, and we don't know if he's telling the truth. He claims he's responsible for the disappearance of the colonists at Roanoke in the 1500s. He says he is neither a god nor an immortal, and he is dying of natural causes, which is why he wants one of the children of Little Tall Island. That implies he started life as a human, and all his power is learned, hence him wanting to take on a student to pass his knowledge onto. If that is the case, I think we can safely say the kid has no connection to Lanoge. The kid doesn't appear to age from 1619 to 2018, while Andre Lanoge is getting older. Pause for Fleetwood Mac joke. Admittedly, Lanoge uses a glamour to make himself look much younger, and I guess it is possible the kid is doing the same, but we see no evidence he is. The only transformation we see from the kid doesn't resemble the same kind of monstrosity Andre Lanoge presumably is. Unless we get a Castle Rock Season 3 sometime in the future, unlikely, that gives us more backstory on the kid. I'm calling this connection inconclusive but unlikely. The next candidate is Randall Flagg, who appears in some form in many Stephen King stories, but is mainly seen in The Stand, Eyes of the Dragon, and a couple of the Dark Tower books. Much like Andre Lanoge, Flagg seemingly started off as a normal human named Walter Paddock, born to a miller in the kingdom of Delane, the setting of Eyes of the Dragon. While what we know about him is incredibly sparse, he somehow studied the dark arts to become the nearly all-powerful force we see in some of his appearances. Generally speaking, if a character's initials are RF, like Raymond Fiegler or Richard Ferris, then you've got a Randall Flagg on your hands. Depending on which version of the Gunslinger you're reading, he's also gone by other names like Martin Broadcloak, Walter, and Marlin. Since so many of the evil wizard types in King's stories are all the same guy, it's tempting to link the kid to Flagg, but I don't buy it. For one, Flagg showed up in the town of Castle Rock in 1974 in the novella Gwendy's Button Box, co-written by King and Richard Chismar. Chismar confirmed Richard Ferris is Randall Flagg. Castle Rock is shown to be a smallish town where everybody knows everyone, and it's pretty difficult to keep any secrets for any length of time. If Flagg showed up in the 1970s and again in the early 90s, only to be imprisoned for nearly 30 years with everyone wondering who this guy is, someone would have remembered him showing up even for just a day back in the 1970s. Flagg has more than one form. He has his human form, his nearly human form, and his absolutely not human form. I guess depending on which printings of the Dark Tower books you've read, he can change his human form, since Rowan didn't seem to recognize the Man in Black from the Gunslinger as the same guy who was sleeping with Rowan's mom. But why would he bother? What would Randall Flagg have to gain from showing up in 1991, allowing himself to be in prison, and then trying to get Henry Deaver to take him back home? Especially since Flagg is seemingly able to cross the dimensional barrier on his own, since he's in the fantasy kingdom of Delane in Eyes of the Dragon, in Rowan's world in The Gunslinger, which might be the same planet based on a cryptic passage in the Drawing of the Three, and the world of The Stand. But the kid seemingly needs help crossing worlds. Flagg is sometimes associated with a smiley face. In Castle Rock, after Dennis Zaluski has made physical contact with the kid, he draws a smiley face on the security monitors at Shawshank. But other than this connection, which isn't very strong by itself, there's almost nothing that suggests this is Randall Flagg. Even at his weakest, Flagg is considerably more powerful than what the kid appears to be. In the 1990s Stand miniseries, when Dana Jurgens tries to stab Flagg, he turns the broken shard of glass into a banana. When Ruth Deaver stabs the kid, he gets stabbed. We don't know how much of what happens is part of the kid's plan, but some of what happens seems to be stuff that's out of his control, like how he's not happy with Pangborn for allowing him to be in prison for 27 years. But I don't see Randall Flagg allowing himself to be put in prison, even to serve a grand plan. So I'm saying the kid is not Randall Flagg. That just leaves the Crimson King, who I guess is the closest thing to the ultimate evil in the Stephen King multiverse. He's the villain in the novel Insomnia, and he shows up in the finale to the Dark Tower series. The Crimson King is half human, half demon, basically, and Randall Flagg works for him. While the Crimson King wants to tear down the Dark Tower, that's the thing that's holding the multiverse together, to put it simply, Randall Flagg wants to take over the tower and become the god of everything. So though both of these figures are enemies of our heroes, their goals don't line up. This is where the kid may come in. I suspect the kid is another servant of the Crimson King. Maybe he's younger, or at the least much more inexperienced than Flagg, hence his weakness we see in Castle Rock, getting stabbed, being imprisoned by mere mortals for 30 years, and his inability to return home. With how time and alternate worlds works in the Stephen King cosmos, it's unclear exactly how old Randall Flagg is to compare to the at least 400 years the kid is seemingly active on Earth. Maybe he's not that much older, but he's just tapped into something darker and much more elemental to boost his powers. If the kid is a servant of the Crimson King, this might explain how he knows so much about Henry Deaver. Our Henry speculates he learned everything from the couple of days he lived at the Deaver house after his release from Shawshank. That's possible, but we already have telepathy in the King multiverse, with characters like Danny Torrance, Molly Strand, Ted Brodigan, and practically the entire cast of Rose Red. So maybe he has some dark version of The Shining and honed in on everything he needed to know to try to convince Molly he was just an innocent stranded in a foreign world. Randall Flagg also seems to have some level of omnipotence, so if these two are both servants of the same devil, this would track. What's Henry up to in Castle Rock? I don't know. The end of both seasons indicate he's planning something big we may never get to see. While the kid was lying about being an alternate reality son of the Deavers, I don't think he was lying about wanting to go home. Home is just not what he told Molly Strand and Henry Deaver it is. Maybe he wants to get to the tower for his own purposes, like Randall Flagg. Or maybe he wants to get there to report to the Crimson King. Maybe he was exiled by the Crimson King. We don't know. And this statement from Skarsgård is just vague enough. Maybe he was referring to the Shawshank Redemption, where his character is in prison, which is something you see in the very first episode. But I think there's more to it than that. We may never get our answers, but it's still fun to speculate. I hope you guys like this, and if you did, be sure to check out some of the other stuff I do around here. Until next time, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.